On the next 2 episodes of El Jefe's Chop Shop, we're going to be following Colin Chapman's words: simplify and add lightness.
Got your brand new jumper cables there.
Yeah.
Big thick boys.
Thickies. Much like Jackson. Not half a tank of fuel.
That's a bonus. Oh, for autos, you gotta like hold them till they go all the way down, and then keep holding it, and then all the way up, and keep holding it, and it'll be in auto mode.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You gotta reset them when you.
Oh.
Yeah. And hold it for like 5 seconds. And do the opposite, and then hold it for 5 seconds in the up position, and it'll train the window where. Yeah.
Nice.
Yay, I'm useful.
Jackson, go. For no reason. Nice.
Here in gangster mode.
Not yet.
Down there. Oh, Sunny on tilt.
Only on tilt. That worked. Is that this one? That's this one, isn't it?
Oh, I didn't even know they had
That's
that.
the best thing about CRVs.
Wow.
It's so good.
First gen Porsche Cayennes have them and no one knows that.
They're right. And this has got a bit of a... I don't know what that noise is, but...
It sounds like it's full of like
Stuff.
something.
Yeah, it's like all of these all loose or something.
Spider skeletons. Oh, yuck. Oh, don't stroke out again. Come on, mate.
Yeah, that's gross.
Taste it.
No. No. Let's check.
Power locks.
Oh, yeah. That one?
Uh-huh.
That's a really loud beat.
Doesn't beep beep though, just beeps.
What's it called? The key recognition thing. So if I do perhaps use this in another car, I need to use the key immobilizer guy in the
Yeah.
barrel, like that Mark III that was a huge pain in the ass and I had to sit in the backyard for 6 weeks.
Round 2 for jump starting the CRV because the battery holds 0 charge.
Yay!
It's got a hole in the bottom, must be leaking out.
Wouldn't surprise me because it's had a fair old hit.
You're leaking out all your electrons.
Just putting the hood in the service position here.
What?
The hood. Bonnet. Service position. Alright, so I spent a little bit of time on this yesterday. Just cut some more stuff off. I didn't really film any of it because Jackson had my phone filming the Toyoys stuff, which you will see already or later. So what I'm doing now is just going to take this guard off and get the inner guard out and just try and strip all this corner and then chop off what I can, so I have a nice open engine bay. It looks like the other side. Speaking of which, the other side is fully stripped out obviously still rolling and driving. There's one set of wires that go to an earth that need to be disconnected. I'd kind of like to cut this some more. Probably don't need to, but just like it nice and neat for when I go to play with this. And then I haven't touched the rest of it yet, and we're starting to get a small pile of parts that I can sell. So I'll jump into this corner, get it all ready to go, and then I'll show you the engine bay when I'm done for now. Alright, so I got this guard off, fed the bonnet cable back through there, and then the mystery wire that was coming this way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but it was a super long wire that came over here and was kind of by itself. Turns out that's the guard indicator, and there's actually nothing here as per normal. Like normally Japanese cars have all the wiring loom on the driver's side. Nothing on this side really, so now I've just got to feed a few wires through this section here, and then I can cut off this front bit on both sides. So pretty happy with that, and that should take only 5 minutes. So I'll cut it off and I'll show you when I'm done. Turns out this car was already crashed because all this corner's been, I think, repainted. It's been definitely knocked around a little bit and pulled straight. So this corner was already knackered. They fixed that, and then this corner got knackered. So chop it off. Alright, so I got a bunch of stuff chopped off. A lot of the wiring's just tucked out of the way. Moved a few earths so I could cut some more stuff and then put them back on. So I think what I'm going to do now is probably the wrong thing. I'm going to connect the battery, hope that the airbags don't go off, and then see what errors we've got, what codes we're throwing, all that sort of stuff. See if it still starts, and then try and move it forwards and backwards just to make sure it all works. And then I'll continue ripping this apart another day. That's probably it for today, but I'll chuck the battery on, see how that goes. Alright, now I know this is a very bougie battery. It came from Dad's boat. The other one died, so he gave me this one. So I'm going to set the camera up and then attach this just in case. I want to catch it on camera if something goes bang. So I'll chuck the camera in the window, hopefully that'll record, and then I'll touch a battery and hopefully nothing happens, but if I do, I can catch it on camera. Alright, so I got my phone wedged in the headrest of the passenger seat, so I'll run around, chuck the battery on and turn the key, see what happens. A battery fault and a seatbelt fault, which is nothing to be worried about. Just chuck the seatbelt in, that goes away. We've got an oil light, which will go away. The door is this guy, that goes away. So I'm going to turn this on. I assume I don't have to push the clutch, I'm not 100% sure. Hopefully none of the airbags go off. Alright, so it still runs. Not a warning light in sight, other than the door one, which I can turn off like that. So that's pretty good. Let's see if it moves. Alright, forwards gear. Straighten the wheels up a little bit. Still moves, mint, reverse, still moves. Sweet. Alright, so that just proves that nothing I've taken off here is detrimental to the car actually working. Obviously the coolant sensor won't work, none of the lights will work, the horns may work. I'll try that actually. The horns don't work, so I assume they need to be connected to the earth up the front. And pretty much everything's just ripped apart and nothing's actually throwing any errors, which is really nice. So I'll just continue doing that as I strip the rest of the car and keep this thing fully functioning, hopefully. It's starting to look pretty bare, which is kind of nice. Chopped off the tubs and stuff, that front rail is gone. So it still drives and it's not throwing any codes, so that's pretty sick. Alright, so I've got a couple of hours free. I'm going to start ripping into this wiring loom and deleting whatever I don't need to make this thing run. So all the headlight stuff, obviously keeping one of the wires for the dash to give the headlight the high beam signal and the dash trigger and all that sort of stuff. But I'm just going to go through and remove whatever I can and just keep the rest of the car in one piece for now. And then if I mess up here, I can undo what I did and keep this thing running. So I'll just sit here and watch YouTube and cut this stuff up, and I'll get back to you if I get anywhere. Alright, it's been about an hour and a half. I have started to lose sunlight and I've cut this down a heap. So I've left this, which is the ABS, and I think the airbags, which I'll dig into later. And then I've just got this small amount of wiring here, which looks pretty long and convoluted, but I've left some of them at full length. A couple bits of the headlight stuff still there, and then the radiator fans and the temp gauges and the outside temp gauges and all that sort of stuff. So now what I need to do is get into this last little corner and try and delete what I can that goes to the fuse box, and then I'll go from there back into the car probably tomorrow, but I'll see what else I can get done today. Probably not a whole lot, it'll be pretty dark soon, so I'll just keep chopping away but as you can see, that's all tape, that's conduit, and that's the wiring I've taken out so far. So just trying to tidy up and trying to be really systematic about it and not cut anything that I actually need. So I'll keep going and I'll update you in another hour or so when I've got something good, or tomorrow. Alright, it's a new day, just going from work. So I left myself with a bit of a mess last night. So the idea today is to try and get all this stuff hopefully back into the cabin of the car, all the stuff I don't need back into the car and cut off, and then everything I do need to make this engine run still out here, and then I will chuck the battery on, see if it all still works. And then there's a few reference wires that I want to keep from here to the dash, like the when you turn the headlights on, the dash light comes on, so I want to have all that stuff all labelled and tagged and ready to go when I put this into a different car. So I'm going to just keep chipping away at this wiring until we've got nothing left. So I'm going to take a few things out of the engine bay first, and then I'll get into that. Alright, I've cut a bit more out, so I'm going to grab the battery, hook it up, and then see if we've got any aero lights, and see if it still fires up. Fingers crossed, because I don't want to have to try and put any of this stuff back in. So I've got the battery hooked up with the key in place, so let's see if it still fires up. That's a good start. And no errors, just the open door and the handbrake, which is good. So I know the headlights won't work and all that sort of stuff, but that's a good start. Alright, this will be way easier with the engine out, because the wiring harness actually goes underneath the back of the engine there into the firewall. So what I'm going to do instead is start taking the interior apart and try and find the wiring on the back of the dash and get the dash out maybe and see how far we can go. But I pretty much want to keep everything connected from the engine to the dash. So anything that causes a warning light, I want to keep that connected to the engine and keep the dash connected to the engine as well. And then all the other stuff can go. So all the aircon controls, I still want the aircon trigger for the button, but everything else can go. So I'm just going to jump in and start removing stuff from the inside of the car. Alright, so I haven't touched the interior on this thing yet, so I'm just going to start real slowly, just keep everything marked and start taking stuff out. Probably start with the stereo because there's a lot of wires attached to that I don't need, and just work my way across. Again, keeping the bits for M's car that I need, so like this guy, these switches with the chrome, the vents with the chrome, this delete panel for if you have an automatic or a manual, just in case, this surround for M, bunch of stuff, probably that gear knob, so that can go with the surround and everything to M. Then that shifter will eventually go over once the engine's out, but yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff I'm going to keep taking away systematically and slowly, and we'll get somewhere eventually. Alright, so it's probably been 10 or 15 minutes, got this side of the car apart, as much as I can anyway, at this stage. All the wiring looms I have disconnected have been labelled, so I'm going to move over to the other side and start taking stuff off over there until it looks like this, and maybe the dashboard has to come out. I'm trying to leave the dashboard in and remove everything else out and leave all the wiring in place, but once all the wiring's disconnected, the dashboard can come out anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Just want to keep the airbags and stuff in place for now. So I'll jump over there, see what we can do. Alright, so I've gotten this side apart pretty quickly as well. Got the speedo out. Everything is electric, which is awesome. I was kind of expecting some speedo cables or something like that. This car's obviously one of the newer ones that I've pulled apart, and it's still kind of old, so I wasn't sure what to expect there. So if you're a CRV purist, probably look away now, because I'm going to cut this dashboard with the reciprocating saw, because everything is screwed to the back of it. All the framework and everything is all screwed to the back, and all the wiring is screwed to the framework, so I'm just going to cut away what I don't need and what's in the way. Probably ignore that side for now, but just over here, and just get a little bit more access. Well, that's much better access now, so I can just cut a few little pieces off and heaps more access. So I'll do the same in the middle. Alright, I'm working with a headlight, so this is pretty garbage. But I'm so close to getting the actual dash pad out. I've done a lot of cutting and a lot of hackery and stuff. That's all pretty loose. So I'm just going to jump over this side, try and get those last few bits and pieces, get this dash out, and then I'll call it for the night and come and deal with this mess in the morning. Alright, the dash is out, not a single wire cut, and the floor is covered in plastic fluff. So I'll come out here tomorrow, vacuum all the floor, and continue deconstructing the front half of this car. Alright, new day. Again, a little half day today. So I've got the vacuum cleaner out, I'm just going to clean all this up, and then I'll start diving into chopping out what I actually need. Alright, I've done a quick vacuum on this side and above the dash and everything. as I got it everywhere, as you can imagine. So now I'm just going to start going through the wiring and trying to delete whatever I can. So I'm probably going to start with this pile of stuff down here and just see what's there and what doesn't need to be. There's an alarm system here, so I'll try and remove that if I can, and just sort of keep on keeping on and just try and get all this wiring as separated as I can. Alright, so it's been probably 2 hours, which doesn't really look like it. But I've got most of this stuff out, a lot of the bolts and stuff are out. I'm still trying to work on getting the main part of the heater out, which is driving me crazy, but I don't want to take this dash bar out. I'm tempted to cut this thing off, but then the earths are attached to that, so I'm trying to leave some stuff and also remove that big box. So it's a bit of a pain. Dash cluster is sitting up there. Most of the wiring is just dangling. Ended up cutting the carpet and ripping all that out because it was just annoying me, and it gave me a little bit more room. So I'm just trying to get this middle section out, and then once that's out I can actually look at the wiring and start stripping it back and decoding it all, I guess. Alright, it's been another hour or so. Cut out this middle framework thing. All the wiring loose on the floor. Still can't get the heater box out. I'm pretty sure the dashboard rail has to come out, which I was kind of expecting but really hoping not to. As for the actual wiring, I've disconnected a few plugs and a few earths and stuff, so all of that should be able to be plugged back in, hopefully. I won't really know until I can get this thing out of the way, because I don't want to deal with it until that thing's out of the way, because I'll have to unplug it again a million times, I'm sure. Alright, so I haven't got much further other than freaking out about all of this stuff. So I've plugged it all back in the middle here, connected all the earths, run a jumper cable to an earth. So I'm going to grab the keys, put the battery on and see if it still starts and see if we've got any issues, and then probably just start disconnecting stuff and hoping that it all still works. So wish me luck. Alright, so I got the key, still turns the dash lights on, which is awesome. The beeper still works, which I don't like, but it's alright. Still get a bunch of area lights and stuff. The engine does something, which is nice. No extra warning lights there, just the seatbelt, which I've disconnected, the battery, which will go away once it turns on, the oil light, which will do the same thing, and the door, which is both of the front doors are open. So just check it's in neutral again, and it should start still. Sweet. And the key obviously still recognises, or the car still recognises the key, so we're getting somewhere, which is good. Alright, so the good news about all of that is some stuff is actually disconnected and obviously has no effect on the car running and driving. So these are the stereo and the hazard lights. Could probably cut those off. Then there's the cigarette lighter and the AC controls, which are down there, so I can probably cut those off. But I do want to still have the trigger wire for the air conditioning, so I'm not sure how to do that just yet, whether I keep the donor car's aircon control wire or if I use the one from the Honda. So I'm not sure about that. And then there's a few other things that are disconnected, like all the heater box aircon stuff, whether I can delete all of that. So it's a bit of a process, but I guess I'll just keep unplugging stuff and see what we end up with. Alright, it's 8:30 in the morning. Today is the first day I'm actually have a full day on this CRV wiring loom. So I'm going to get a bit more involved and just chop off some stuff and start DPing the whole lot and removing every wire I don't need. I've decided / been convinced that I should delete the airbag system before it goes off in my face, which is probably a good idea, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to get rid of the wiring for the stereo, the wiring for the AC controls, and just a whole bunch of stuff that I definitely know I don't need. So I'll rip all of that out. I've got a whole day today. Don't have any commitments until 6 o'clock tonight, so it's 8:45 or something like that. So let's get into it. Let's delete a bunch of stuff and I'll catch you up when I've made some good progress. Alright, it's been about 45 minutes. I've deleted the cigarette lighter, the aircon controls, the heater box and the aircon and stuff, and a few other things. So I've got a bunch of wires here that go up into the rest of the loom, so I'm going to ignore those for now. And I've deleted a couple of little bits and pieces from here. So I'm going to start trying to disconnect that door and see if I can delete the door wiring. Then I'll try and delete the airbags and move my way this way until there's not much left in the middle and follow that loom wherever it goes. But first I want to start it and make sure I don't have any extra warning lights before I cut anything else. Alright, so passenger front door, disconnected, still starts and runs, no extra faults. So I'm going to cut this off and then chase the wires. Alright, that didn't take too long. I've deleted the passenger door, got all the extra wires up the top here, still need to chase them into that loom. And then I also cut off the passenger airbag because I don't want it to go off, basically. So I'm going to expect a airbag light on the dash, and I haven't chased that at all. It just goes to just here, but I'll deal with that later. It was just in the way and I didn't want to set it off. So I'll move to the driver's door now, try and chase all those wires back to this big clump, and then I'll probably dig into that big clump. Still runs, and the only extra warning light is that airbag one, which I expected, so that's good. Let's delete the driver's door. Alright, so moving on to this driver's door, the aftermarket immobilizer is actually connected to the driver's door loom, so I'm going to leave that just for now. But there was another wire in the way, which was the sunroof, so I've just unplugged that and tucked it out of the way, and the car still runs and is happy. So now I'll try and disconnect this door, see if that is a huge problem. I'm assuming it will be, and then I'll go from there. Alright, so with the driver's door completely disconnected, it's still fine. So I'm not sure what this immobilizer is doing or this alarm is doing, but there's no connection there and it's still happy. So I'll start deleting wires. So I've deleted a lot of wires off this side. A lot of stuff runs up to the fuse box to the back of it. So I assume I'll have to pull that off later and de-pin and then pull the stuff out the front that is now connected to nothing, but I'll deal with that later. So let's just see if it does work. Again, so we've got dash lights. Pretty much all of them are turning off. And we've got the same errors as before and it still runs, so that's excellent. On to the next problem. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to delete is the rest of the airbag module. So I've just disconnected it and the car still runs and there's no extra lights. So I'm going to follow those back, delete everything off of there. Alright, I've just been working away here. I just deleted a bunch more stuff. So this probably still looks like a huge mess, but we are getting there. One thing I did delete and didn't mean to is the key beeper. So there's no buzzer anymore, which is super nice because I hated that. But everything still works. Still starts up. Still got the fuel tank gauge. Still got RPM. I assume the speedo still works because I obviously haven't tried that. And the electric throttle still works. So I'll delete the next thing and update you then. Alright, so the next thing I was trying to delete was everything from the back of the car. So there's these two plugs here. So disconnected the small one, everything still works. Disconnected the big one and the fuel gauge stopped working. So I'm not sure which wires are the fuel gauge, but I will plug that back in for now and it'll go away eventually. This one here is not needed as far as I can tell. So I'll just delete that one, delete this end of it and move on to the next job. Alright, so I've been out here for about 4 or 5 hours. I've gotten a lot of it cut back, but there is still a bunch to go. So I'm still trying to learn what everything does. So I'm just deleting as I work it out, but we're getting there. So I need to clean up over there. I'm gonna go have some lunch and I'll come back to this in half an hour or so. Alright, so I had lunch, got stuck in, seat fell out, there's a bunch of wires been deleted. I haven't really filmed anything, but I am getting through it a whole lot quicker. So there's just a little bit here left that goes to the back, just a little bit there that goes to the back. So I'm assuming there's probably rear airbag crash sensors and wheel speed sensors and the fuel pump, the fuel level, a bunch of stuff like that. So that's probably what a lot of this is, but I will work it out as I go. Then the front, I've just sort of let stuff fly and just deleted as I've needed to. So once I've come up with like a plug that's got no wires left in it, follow that back, delete as much as I can. So it is taking a long time. It's now 3 o'clock, but I am getting there. Alright, the sun is peering in, it's getting super hot in here, but we've got a pretty decent effort up the front there, I think. Taking the rear seats out, they're sitting back there. All the carpets out, got the fuel pump exposed, cannot get the rear door open, and then cannot get the rear trims off because I cannot get the door open. So I need to work out on getting that door open and getting this thing fully stripped before I cut any more wires, I think. Alright, it's been hours. It's now nearly 7 o'clock at night. my light is going flat, so I'm going to go inside. I've gotten it down to the fuel pump wires, the fuel sensor wires, and the rear wheel speed sensor. So that's all this is. So those 5 wires, and then same on the other side. I've just got the wheel speed sensor left, and then the front half is thinning but still difficult. So I've got no engine lights or anything like that yet. The handbrake light has decided it wants to be on after I cut one more wire out, of course. So I'm working really slowly and hoping that I can keep it all working. So I'm gonna have to give it a break for the night and charge these batteries up and come back out in the morning and try again. So I'll show you where we're up to. Key still turns on, turns the dash on, which is awesome. Currently have a engine light because I did disconnect something that needed to be connected, so I'll plug that back in and that will turn off once I disconnect the battery and reset the ECU. So pretty happy with that so far. Electric throttle still works, which is mint, so I am getting there, just need to get more time to do it. Alright, it's a new day, just gone through here and just cleaned up a little bit, shuffled a bunch of stuff to the back, cleaned out this side. So now I'm just going to move the car forwards, pull the trailer with it, and then disconnect the trailer, put the car out the front, and I'll deal with it then, and then I can sort all these parts out and not have anything in the way. Alright, bit of a quick clean up, put the trailer back in. There's some stuff that I'm just going to keep, / should be out of the weather. And this is all the stuff I took out yesterday whilst chasing wiring. I didn't really mean to take anything off, to be honest, but this was all in the way of the wiring, so off it came. This stuff will all be for sale. Trailer is out the way for now. Put the CRV there. Sort of clean up this rubbish, bit of scrap metal, more rubbish. That's all the stuff I cut to get the dashboard out. So now I can move on to whatever's left on the CRV. Alright, so this is where we got to. Most of the wiring is sorted out and deleted. Needs a lot of tidying obviously, and a few more things to get cut off. But I'm probably going to leave it here for now, because this episode's probably already pretty long. So we're getting there, and in the next episode this thing will be chopped up and all sorted. And just a quick look at the engine bay. Pretty much everything except for that pile has been sorted, so I'll deal with that in the next episode. I hope you've enjoyed this week of me destroying this CRV, cutting all the wiring out and keeping it running. So next week I'll chop everything off, all the doors, all the roof, all of the bits and pieces that I can remove, and keep it running and driving. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.